You know, a lot of people write about the world being smaller, more connected, and so on. You write about the fact that even in that kind of a world, a specific place is very much the central axis of the way we operate and what our priorities should be. Can you just expand on that a little bit?
Well, most people think with technology and communications in the wireless world, we can basically live wherever we want. We can spread ourselves all over North America and the globe. Point of fact is the places that are important in the world economy are fewer and fewer. We documented in this book that I wrote, Who's Your City? There are 40 mega regions that are kind of the pivot points of the world economy. They account for less than 18% of our population, but produce 2/3 of all of our economic output and 9 and 10 of our innovations. The world is, as it becomes smaller, is becoming more concentrated, they're like great mountain ranges or great spikes that rise up. And so I think that what's going to happen in Canada, across North America, and the world, is there going to be fewer places that are bigger. And here's the way for people to think about this. We once had these little tiny villages. And then as our economies grew, we got cities. But cities 100, 200 years ago were small. There were less than 1 million people. Then the cities grew into these giant industrial cities like New York or Chicago or Toronto. Then we added the suburbs. And so what we grew up in is a city surrounded by a suburb. Greater Toronto is like 5 million people. Greater New York's like 20 million people. Greater Tokyo is like 35 or 40 million people, a city and suburbs. Now what we're going to grow is mega regions, which are multiple cities with multiple sets of suburbs, like the New York, Boston, Washington corridor. And more people move towards those. It's not like it's a back to the city. People confuse this. Everybody's going to pack themselves in Toronto or New York. The whole mega region is going to grow denser and denser and denser. And so, we're in Toronto today. But if you commute in Toronto, you'll see that the whole thing is dense.
Right.
And you'll go to suburbs which have high-rise buildings, and you go outside the city core and find different, we call them edge cities, satellite centers. That whole thing is going to become denser and infill. And more people are going to the problem is many of the outlying areas. If I think about the Midwest, the Clevelands, the Detroits, the Buffaloes, they may shrink while the Chicago and its environment gets bigger.
Is that something that government should strive to avoid or allow it to happen?
Well, it's a hard question. Here's what we're thinking about in the context of Toronto and Ontario. Because we're a big province with a lot of space, what if we could build an infrastructure, let's say some kind of fast rail? We know people are going to have to use their cars to make local trips to get to and fro the market. But let's say we could build a fast rail infrastructure across the mega region. In New York 100 years ago, the people who were building New York said, we need some trains. We need some subways. And it looked like those suburbs out there on Long Island and New Jersey, they were like farm towns. But it said we could connect them and allow people to come into the city and we can grow. That became a flexible infrastructure that allowed for suburbanization to begin to grow up. What if we just expand that now to the whole mega region, from Toronto to Windsor, Windsor to London to Toronto, across, to Ottawa, to Montreal and Quebec, down to Hamilton and so on and so forth. That allows us to build scale across the whole mega region. It allows us to kind of not only move quicker between those points, but to fill it in. So over time, that becomes like a skeletal framework that can allow growth to occur. But I think we're going to have to figure out ways for government to invest, to build the infrastructure that are going to enable us to build a growth capacity for the future. But on this score, it's going to be new forms of housing, new forms of education, new forms of healthcare, and new forms of energy and transit as well.
If you're elected mayor of one of these mega cities and you're striving to attract the creative class that you're kind of associated with and other important citizens, what's the number one priority you do to become an attractive destination for these people?
I'd reframe the question.
Okay.
And
you're the mayor, so you can do that.
The way I would reframe the question is to say that every one of my citizens is creative. And every one of my citizens has to be a member of the creative class. I think that's the phase shift we need to encounter. So now about 35 to 40% of us have the great good fortune to work in arts, entertainment, science, technology, the professions. But every single human being is creative. So I think the politics of the future, or the economy of the future, has to be one which values and harnesses and pays for the creativity of everyone. So I would put a premium. I would make sure that my jurisdiction was able to build flourishing creative occupations across the board, great in science, great in technology, great in arts. But I'd also want to make sure that my manufacturing was as creative as humanly possible. Most importantly, I would engage in a serious conversation and transformation of the service industry. 45% of our people today work in the service economy. They're the people who cut our hair, take care of our yards, sell us our clothes, wait on us in restaurants, take care of us, not the doctor, the other people who take care of us when we visit a medical center or a hospital. Those are the jobs that are sticky. They're stuck in our cities. The guy who cuts your hair is not going to do that from China.
Right.
The
They
person
haven't
gives,
figured it away yet. but-
you're not going to get a robotic back massage from Mumbai. I think those are the jobs that we have to make better. My dad used to tell me this story. My dad was born in 1921. He said, Rich, when I got a job working in a factory in 1934, he got a job when he turned 13. He said, I had a terrible job. It took 9 of us to make a living wage, right? Your grandfather, your grandmother, me and my 6 brothers and sisters. I came back from World War II. My job was magically transformed into this great job with high wages, good benefits, social insurance, health care, and all the rest. I could buy a house and put you kids through college. Somehow we made manufacturing jobs, which were terrible jobs, dirty, dangerous, low pay. We made them good jobs. We have to do the same thing with service jobs today. We have to make them more efficient, more innovative, more productive, but we also have to raise wages and working conditions. So I'd make my jurisdiction the place where everybody can find a job that they want, do something that they love, be able to express themselves and make a good living. That's a tall order, but until we pose that goal, we're not going to get there.